Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So let's continue building this project by adding the logout functionality to this Next.js sign up and sign in project. If you do remember, when we log in a user, one of the things that we do is to create and send a token to the user's browser. So I'm actually gonna show you that here. So we have no cookies currently, but I'm gonna log in an existing user and we'll see the token here. Okay. Okay, exactly. So we see the token here as expected, as explained, and we redirected the user to the profile page. Of course, if the user is able to reach the profile page, means the user is logged in. Therefore, the user should see an option for logout, which is this button right here. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to take advantage of this token. Okay, to log out the user, we will remove this token by setting this token to an empty token, basically. Okay, and then we will redirect the user to whatever page we want to. In my case, when the user logs out, I'm going to redirect the user to the login page. So this is what we are trying to accomplish in this video. And now if I click in this button, you will notice that this token goes away and the user will be redirected to the login page. Let's check. Yeah, that's what happened. Login page and the token got removed. Okay, this is what we are doing in this video. So let's build this functionality together. Okay, so now what you need to do is to clone my repository, this one, the sign up and sign in functionality. So for that, I'm going to click here and then I'm going to click code and grab this URL. And then in my case, I'm going to be going inside my documents folder. So I'm going to say cd documents, right? And then once in here, I'm going to say git clone. I'm going to type git clone and I'm going to paste this URL, press enter. It is cloning. And I now want to cd into the cloned project folder. So I'm going to say cd. Now I'm inside this folder. And what I want to do is to open it inside Visual Studio Code. So for that, I just type code and a dot, press enter. Okay, now I have the project cloned, but notice that I do not have the node modules folder, which means the first thing that I actually need to do is to run npmi in order to install everything that we need for this project. Press enter, and this is going to create the node modules folder and the next folder, whatever. Just run the command npmi and you're good to go. And we need to wait this to finish, then we can run the development server. Right, so as you can see, the installation is finished. We are all excited and we run the command npm run dev that we can find inside this package.json file. So here's the command and I did that already. As you can see, I have the application running and you think we can move on and you can code along, but you can't. Why is this? Because for you to follow, you need to have your own connection string, MongoDB connection string. So I provided you with a .env file, but as you can see, the Mongo URI string is actually empty, which means that if I try to click and try to register or do whatever, log in, I can't do that because there's no Mongo connection string in this project. So you need to get your own connection string and come back to this video. If you do not know how to do this, all you have to do is to check the previous video and I will guide you through how to get this connection string. So I'm gonna wait for you, then we can continue. Right, back to business. Okay, trust me when I tell you that I have my connection string inside my .env file. I'm not gonna show it to you, but trust me, I have it, which means that I should be able to now to log in an existing user and see the process of getting the token inside the user's browser. So I'm gonna click this button, but then I go to the login page instead, and in here I'm actually gonna log in an existing user, as I said, and I'm gonna also inspect this so you see what's happening. So inspect application, we go to cookies, and there's no cookies, there's no token in here, as I explained to you before. But now I'm gonna actually log in this existing user, and when I click the login button, we'll get this token in here. Okay, so I'm gonna do that right away. I press login, and of course I got the token as expected, and we were redirected to the profile page. And this is exactly the page that we need to work. Okay, we need to work on this page in terms of the UI. We'll improve this page a tiny bit, and we will add a logout button in here, which means only logged in users should see the logout button inside the profile page. Okay, so this is what we are trying to do. And now I'm actually gonna delete this cookie, right? And I'm gonna go back to login, and we are going to start our work from the back end, and then we'll move on to the front end part. Okay, so let's do this now. Okay, so let's see what we need to do in terms of the backend. That means API. So first we need to create a new API route. Okay, so we'll go inside API and then inside users, and then inside users we need to create the logout. Okay, and then we will create the file for this route. It's going to be like the other two, it's going to be a route.ts file. And inside this file, what we want to do actually is to take advantage of what we already started, which is to use the token, okay? Because as I showed you, when the user gets logged in, we create and send a token, okay, to the user's browser, okay? And we can take advantage of this. And this is actually the plan, because in order for us to be able to log out the user, when the user clicks the logout button that I showed you, there's some code that will run, of course, in the back end. And what we want to do behind scenes is we want to remove the existing token inside the browser, okay? Because the user only gets this token inside the browser after successful login. And by setting this token to empty, we can actually log out the user and redirect the user to a page of our choice. In this project, in my case, in our case, we want to redirect the user to the login page. So the user is logged in, gets redirected to the profile page, sees the logout button, clicks the logout button, and when it does that, we basically remove the token and we redirect the user to this page. So this is the first part that we have to do, which is the backend stuff. And of course, after that, we'll have to change the profile page UI just a tiny bit, because as you can see now, this is all what we have. Okay, so let's start with the backend part, shall we? Cool, time for us to work on the backend, finally. So we need to go inside source, app, Then inside our API folder and then inside users, we need to create another route. This time, obviously, we're going to call it Logout. You can call it whatever you want, but this obviously makes sense. And as I said, the file convention is the same, route.ts. So logout, and I'm going to create a file, and I'm going to call it route.ts. So remember the conventions. If it's a page in the front end, we call it page.something. If it's a route in the back end, we call it route.something. This is a very important convention to always keep in mind. Okay, so now what do we need? We need to create a function, basically. Okay, of course we need to create a function, of course, silly me. So when we are dealing with backend stuff, at the end of the day we are dealing with requests and responses. So this is like full stack. I mean, when we are dealing with full stack, but in this case all we need is just to deal with the response. Okay, so I'm gonna import the next response, and we use this next response. Okay, we don't need the request in this case, and we use it the next server in the previous video. If you don't know how to, just check it. I will be linking that video in this video's description. Okay, so now what we need to do is actually to create an async function. It's async because we are dealing with database and stuff like that. And we need to use the get method. So I'm gonna start export async function. The method is going to be get, as I said to you. Okay, and what we need to do, we need to do a couple of things, but we are going to do first what we normally do, which is to use our try and catch statement, this block of code. And well, I mean, we can start by handling the error in case there's any error, and because we are using TypeScript, I'm gonna say the error can be any, and then we can actually return return a next response. Okay, we are returning a response, of course, in JSON format. Okay, the usual stuff, nothing new. And then inside this response, what we want to do, we want to say error, of course, because that's what we are dealing, and we want to just provide the error message. Okay, we are not going to be very advanced in this, so this is the usual stuff. Okay, and as usual, we can also send the status code, and we can just send the usual 500 status code, which means something wrong with the server. And then we can actually work in our logic for the backend button, for the logout button in the backend. Okay, so we want to log out the user, and what we also want to do is to create a message for the user that is getting logged out. So I'm going to start by creating a const. I'm going to call it user logout, and it's going to be a response, so I'm going to call it user logout response, and I'm going to set this equal to next response. You get it right, cool. JSON as usual, our nice friend, and here we go. Okay, inside this response we want to pass in the usual message, which is going to be something like, I don't know, we want to say the user was logged out, so we can say the user was logged out. This obvious. And we also want to send the success, and I'm missing a C, success, and I want to send this to the boolean, which is true. Okay, and I forgot to add a comma, of course, because we are inside an object. Okay, so this is just our message. So now we really need to work on how we are going to be logging out the user. For that, we want to set the existing token empty. And by how are we going to achieve that? So a comment, set the existing token in our caps lock, do not get me wrong, empty. Why is this? Because if the user is logged in, as I showed you, that means there's a token inside the user's browser, and we want to get that token from the cookies, and we want to actually set it to empty. Therefore, we will remove it and we'll be able to log out the user. Okay, so we can grab this user logout response that we defined it up there, and the first thing that we want to do is to access the cookies. Yeah, but not in caps lock. Okay, and now we want to set. Okay, we want to set something. What we want to set, of course, it's the token that we have already. And what do we want to set it to? To an empty string. Instead of the string that we get, we want to set it to an empty string. Okay, now we need to, of course, pass the HTTP only as true, the usual stuff. And how do we actually set this to empty? How do we do that? We make this to expire now. What do I mean by that? So I'm gonna make token expire now. And what is now? Now is at the click of the button, we'll run the code, and this will make the expiration that used to be 2 days, if I'm not wrong. We're gonna set a new date and we're gonna set it to 0, which means expires now. So we're gonna say expires, okay, not in 2 days. Okay, we are going to change that by setting this new information, and we want to set a new date, as I said, and now we pass the value of 0. And 0 in here actually means, no, I do not want that. And 0 means expires now. And now means at the click of the button. Because at the click of the button, we'll create a button with an on-click event that will run this, and this will work. And we cannot forget to return our user logout response. Okay, I think this is all good. So basically we are handling, we are not handling anything. We are creating the logic for the logout, and in here we are handling a potential error. So this is good. I think the backend part is done. I think I'm not forgetting anything, which means we need to move on, and we need to go to the profile page. And of course, users should not be able to access profile pages like this. We need to implement some middleware in order to protect our routes, but that's for the upcoming video. So just ignore that. Just pretend for a minute that I have that implemented already the project, and ignore that. So we are inside the profile page. We want to work on the UI, and we want to provide a logout button in here. So that's what we are going to do right now. First of all, let me tell you congratulations for keeping up with the video and putting the time in making the effort to learn. Trust me, up to recently I knew nothing about this stuff that I'm teaching you. So if I was able to learn, and if I'm able to now teach you, I really strongly believe that you can also learn it easily. Okay, all you need is to practice, and you need someone like me explaining you the steps. This is my opinion. So congratulations for putting the time in making the effort to learn. Okay, that out of the way, let's work. So now we dealt with the backend part, we dealt with the API logic for the logout functionality. Now it's time for us to focus on the front end part. Okay, So what we want to do is basically to improve a tiny bit this UI and to provide the user with a logout button. And that logout button will have a click event, and when the user clicks this button, we want to remove the token and redirect the user to the login page. So this means we need to do a couple of imports. I'm gonna start by importing Axios from Axios. So we're gonna need Axios in order to make our GET request to our API, which is going to be API/users/logout, as we define it right here. Okay, cool. So also we need to then send the user at a given moment, send the user to another page when this process is finished. And we decided to send the user to the login page, because if the user clicks logout, typically we want to send it to the login page or even to the home page or whatever page you need. At the end of the day, we need to use router from next navigation, not next router, next navigation, to send the user and push the user to another page. So for that, we are going to import use router, and not from next router, but from next navigation. There we go. Cool. And because this is actually front-end stuff, we need to use client, because we want to change from a client side, from a server-side component to client-side component. Okay, you know this, I believe. Okay, and we already have this function in place for the profile page. And because we have the use router, we should start by, before our return, of course, before our UI, we need to actually set a const, and we can simply call it router, and we want to, oh gosh, not in caps lock, sorry, my bad. So const router, and we want to set it to use router in order to push the user, as I mentioned it. Okay, every time we deal with database stuff and all of that and some information, as I told you before, we need to use async. And this means that inside our UI, we'll use the button, we'll create the button that on click will trigger a function that we are going to set right away. Okay, I'm gonna call this function, we want to log out the user, so I'm gonna call logout the user. You probably love my naming conventions. If not, doesn't matter. And I want to use async, and this is going to be an anonymous arrow function, the usual good stuff. What the heck am I doing here? I do not need that. Okay, back to business. And we are going to use the usual try and catch block, this statement, cool. And as usual, we're gonna say the error can be any, because we are dealing with TypeScript, so we don't know much, we use any. And in this case, we just want to console.log a message in case there's a problem. And we can say something like, oops, I did it again. No, forget it. We could, the message, I'm lost, sorry. We could not log out the user. Very unlikely to happen, but we are preparing ourselves for this. Then we can grab whatever error we potentially get, and we can send the message. Okay, this is not so important, of course. Okay, so this is the logic. We are not yet inside the UI, still inside the logic. What we want to do, because we are using async, and that means we need to use a wait, of course, they go in a pair, And what we want to do is to use Axios, of course, this package, and we want to use the get method because we want to go to our API route, which is going to be API/users and logout it was. Hopefully this is correct, should be. And if this goes all good, which means the user clicks the button, we make this get request, we process the code, whatever code we have in here, which is this logic, and if this gets all correct, what we want to do next is actually to push the user by using the router that we defined it already. We want to push the user to the login page. So I explained you this already so many times. I think there's no way that you are not clear with these goals and steps by now. Hopefully I'm right, and if you are still confused for any reason, just let me know in the comments section below. Okay, cool. So this is the function that will run, that will fire on the click of the button that we do not have yet built. So we have no UI. So we just have one empty React fragment. So let's take care of that. Instead of that, I'm gonna use a div. Cool. Inside this, I better start styling this, otherwise I will forget. So class name, in this case, all I want is to give inside everything inside this div will have an horizontal margin of 5. I'm using just a Tailwind CSS utility class there. You can look that up. And then I'm gonna need a div for my button. So I'm gonna just place some markup, and below that I'm gonna have my h1, my main heading, to let know the user that the user is inside the profile page, because I deleted that information. Now I'm putting it back and we should see it here. There we go. Cool. So let's start with this outer div for the button. Let's style it a bit. So class name, oh gosh, not that, class name, and yeah, that's what I was looking for. Margin Y, so vertically of 10. I'm going to use flexbox, and it's just one element that is going inside this div, and I want to push it to the right hand side, which means justify end, okay? Which is going to be this button that is not visible yet. The text is going to be logout, doesn't really matter. Now we should see it any moment. And I'm gonna actually style it, class name. And now it's time for us to use uppercase. I like to use uppercase a lot. I don't know, maybe you don't like BG white because we are using a black background color, so white stands out nicely. And the text color inside the button is going to be black, and I want to give it a rounded look to this button, so I'm going to give it like rounded full. Padding X, so horizontally of 10, padding Y, which means vertically of 2, and let's see what we have so far. I'm going to save it. Cool, nice, look at that. Doesn't do anything because we do not have the click event yet. But before we add the click event to run all of that code inside the API route, I'm going to use some other. So on other, I want the user to see BG red 500, and still on other only, I want to change the text to white. So the user and we can, oh, I forgot. Oh yeah, there's a typo, should be fixed. Not yet. Now it should be fixed. And I should also add the cursor pointer, which is the usual stuff that we know. So when the user hovers on this button, this is saving, the user will see that can play with the button. I mean, not play, but interact with the button. This is the correct word. Cool. So now it's time for us to actually add this click event. So we can go in here maybe and say on click. No, I'm not getting suggestions because my computer is super slow. Doesn't matter. And on click, what the heck do we want to do? We want to run this custom function that will trigger the code inside our API, right? And this is good. So I believe that this is nearly done, and I want to just style this H1 a tiny bit before we go and test this good stuff. So class name, I want to say text green 600. I think this is the color that I used. Not really sure. I should have extended Tailwind's theme, and I should have extended the colors in order to have it handy, but I have not done that in this tutorial, but I definitely did in other tutorials, so check my playlists and videos and you will find that in case you are interested in learning how to do that as well. So text center, align to the center, I want to give a padding of vertical padding of 10. Okay, I believe this is all working, so it's time for us to test this bad boy and see if this works or not. For that we will log in a user and then get redirected to this route and then click the button to see if we actually remove the token or not. So let's do that right away. So time to test to see if what we did works or not. But before that, I just want to show you my numbers. So this is my channel, as you probably know, of course, and as you can see, I do not have many subscribers yet. And I guess for the first time, I really am saying directly, if you do like what I do in this channel, and if you think I bring value to your learning and to your improvement when it comes to programming in Next.js, React.js, MERN stack, and all of that stuff, please consider subscribing to my channel and maybe share this video with someone that you believe that is going to learn from it. And I don't know, just leave me a like or a comment so I can keep up with my motivation and I can keep up with these videos, because as you can see, my channel is quite recent and yeah, it's time for me to make decisions, and that means you are part of my decisions. Whatever you say to me as a feedback, I will consider it. Okay, so yeah, have a look and think about it, and now it's time for us to check what we did. So I'm now gonna actually go to our login page and I'm gonna try to log in an existing user. So I'm gonna type this user and I'm gonna type the password and I'm gonna check to inspect the application. I'm gonna look for the cookies, and as you can see, of course, I have no cookies, and I believe that I will get a token here after logging in the user. And this happens, and I was redirected to our profile page and I got the token in here. Up to this moment, this is what we had built in the past, nothing new. What we really need to test now is if when I click this button, if this token goes away and if I am redirected to the login page. And if that's the case, definitely we did it all good and we can say that this part is done. So let's click the button, fingers crossed, let's see what happens. Boom, cool. I got redirected and there's no token anymore. Cool. Now that this works, yeah, make sure to hit that subscribe button to me and keep watching, keep motivating me, because I of course also need some motivation to keep doing this stuff for you. All I'm doing here at the end of the day is learning online and teaching online. At the end of the day, that's what I'm doing. And I'm doing this in a way that I find it helpful because it's easy to find YouTubers online on this topic, but it's not that easy to find the YouTubers that actually show you every single bit behind the scenes and every single bit that you need to do in order to make all of this work. And if you agree with me, just let me know in the comments. And I will see you on the next video. Bye!